he's literally snorting pre-workout off of the table.
How would you describe your Saturn returns?
I was unfaithful to my boyfriend and I blew it up, but this was my opportunity to become who I really am.
I was like, you know what? If I'm this low and depressed, I might as well just like burn it all down.
Sharing some of the craziest things that we've done in our 20s.
Like, how far are we going? I'm like, what I'm thinking about is insane.
Rapid fire smash or pass. Matcha over coffee.
Pass.
Botox and filler.
Smash.
Cold plunging.
Smash in seasons.
Soft launching a new relationship.
I like to do that.
Yeah.
Sometimes living your purpose does not look like flow.
The true cost of alignment is often the fact that not everyone can come with you.
What can keep us from our path and our bigness and our power and our purpose is...
Welcome back to the podcast, you guys. Today we have Krista and Lindsey here, the women behind the iconic Almost 30 podcast, one of the top health and wellness podcasts in the world, which has amassed over 120 million downloads. They are some of the OGs in the podcasting space. Welcome to the show, you guys. I'm so excited to have you here.
I love the word iconic. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no, honestly. I was metabolizing that.
I know.
I was like, I'm going to, you know, when you like hear someone say something, you're like, take that on when you're looking in the mirror so you remember it. But yes, we're so excited to be here. It's just such a pleasure. And yeah, we feel lucky that we get to do what we do and talk to women like you and be, you know, in connection and communion with your audience. So we're excited to be here.
New morning affirmation. You're like, I am.
No,
for real.
I need that on a hat.
Okay, so I first kind of want to talk about just the show, you know, because I'm sure so many of my listeners also listen to your show, and I'm sure they'd be so intrigued to hear your perspectives on why you think that the show really took off. Like, what was the magic of Almost 30? Was it the timing and kind of getting into the space early in 2016? Was it those unfiltered, raw conversations of just really being honest about where you were at in life? Was it a certain guest or a feature that you landed? Was it the consistency, community, like all of it? Like, what do you now looking back and being like, we literally built this empire? What were some of those pivotal things that you think really made it successful?
Yeah, great question. I feel like, you know, we've had a lot of time to reflect, especially as we wrote the book. And, you know, when Krista and I started this, we were going through it. We were, you know, in our late 20s, and various aspects of our life felt like they were falling apart. And we basically started the podcast talking about what we were going through, like very honestly, in a very raw way. We look back and we're a little we cringe a little bit, but it was real. And, you know, we really believe that our ability to be vulnerable, to be very honest, was what really garnered that very solid audience base, or really our community that started to form. And, you know, you listed a bunch of things like, you know, what was it? And I think it was a combination. You know, we started in 2016 when the podcast space was still a wild, wild west, and so fun, to be honest, to hit it at that time. You know, we were one of very few female duos doing podcasts, and, you know, we got to like pave our own way in a lot of ways and experiment and not, you know, fall into the habit of like just looking at everyone else and kind of doing what everyone was doing. We did a lot of things that like no one's really done before in the podcasting space at that time. So we've decided to go on tour and meet people from around the world that listen to our podcast. We hosted retreats where people could come and spend time with us for a few days in a beautiful location. So I think our ability to, you know, really focus on community, our ability to show up vulnerably and really share what we were going through in a very unfiltered way, and our ability to like take risks and not worry about whether it was going to be successful or how it looked, just really following our heart as entrepreneurs and as, you know, people in the world who wanted to make an impact. So it was very grassroots. We didn't have like that pop moment of like, that's when we went viral and that's when we made it big. It's really been 9 years of consistency and, you know, trusting ourselves.
These are some of my favorite like stories about success, because I think so many people are waiting for like the moment where something pops, or just the right thing, or just the right episode, or just the right guest, or whatever. And so often the real story is that it was like grit, heart, innovation, just so much consistency over so many years. And so I think it's actually refreshing to hear that it was all of those ingredients and not just like one thing. Because I think there's this idea that, success, if there's a magic formula, if you can just find it, then it will work, whether it's, being a content creator nowadays, social media, like all these things. But to really understand that, no, you poured into it consistently and continued to like innovate and the vulnerability. And that's what really creates it over time.
Yeah. And I think when I think about it too, just related to what you said in the question, it's like Lindsey and I were creating out of the genuine desire for our connection. Like we had no thought about what it would be or what it would become, or it becoming our business, it becoming something we did for this long. Like it's called Almost 30, and Lindsey and I are pretty over 30. So it's like we really didn't have an intention for it to be anything. And I think what it's taught me is that when you actually do something and just like tend to what your desire is, that like feeling that you have of creation, of like possibility, of us just getting to know each other without expectation for what it could be or what expectation for what it should be, that's when things really magical happen. And I noticed that in my life, when I had this like expectation or this blueprint that I was following that was someone else's, it always led me down the wrong path. And where we didn't have a blueprint for Almost 30, what it would be or what it would become, we just followed our desire and our passion and our curiosity all along the way. And I know that's so hard for women that are type A, or so many of us are such powerful manifestors and creators that it can be hard to create without like an expectation or desire or visual. But really, I've noticed that like the things in my life that I've really allowed to be magical and allowed to surprise me have been some of the best things.
Yeah. And I think that's getting harder and harder to replicate nowadays because you have, like Lindsey mentioned, you guys didn't have that visual of like, oh, well, what are all these other podcasts doing? Because there weren't as many. And now there is that, constant comparison of what we should be doing and what's working and following the top creators and all of that. So it's harder to replicate for sure. But I totally resonate too with that idea of just doing something for the sake of doing it because it feels passionate in the moment and not trying to know what step 1000 is and really just focusing on step 1 or 2.
Yeah, it's like when you have a path or blueprint in front of you, then it's like usually someone else's. And it was so hard for us because there wasn't any path or blueprint. Like no one was really doing kind of what we were doing in the way that we were doing it. But it also made it more fun. And it also actually took the pressure off because I thought I wasn't someone that was competitive, but I'm realizing now as I get older that I am very competitive. And if I would have had like comparison, and I have comparison in my work now as like a coach or a teacher, it really just messes with me and it just really brings me down. So the fact that there wasn't any path or any other people doing it was actually really liberating for me because then I didn't have to compare it to someone else. It was like, if this failed, it's all good. Like I didn't even really care because I wasn't comparing it to anyone. So just like encouraging anyone that is a creator or someone that wants to do something, that sometimes when there isn't like a clear path in front of you is really the best thing and is really the most beautiful thing and can really provide you with your most aligned experience and your most aligned journey rather than following someone else's.
I love that so much. And I think that wisdom obviously comes with like age and maturity. Like when we're in our early 20s, the way that you would look at that is so much different. So we're obviously going to talk about the book today because I'm so excited that this book is coming out very, very soon. It's called Almost 30, A Definitive Guide to a Life You Love for the Next Decade and Beyond. And a major theme of the book is about that intense period of change that happens, between your 20s and your 30s when you're moving through your Saturn return and all the mistakes that you make and the pivots and the career meltdowns and questioning relationships and all of that we go through. So I thought it would be fun to kind of start this episode by sharing some of the craziest things that we've done in our 20s. And I'll go first.
Okay. Let her rip. Let's do it.
Okay. I'm like, how far are we going? I'm like, you need to set the barometer for like what we're talking about here because what I'm thinking about is insane.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Well, I want to give you full permission to full send, but I was just kind of thinking before this episode, I'm like, what? Yeah, the 20s were wild. What are some of the craziest things that we all did that probably people listening are like, yep, did that. But I had this like flashback to a memory of literally running out of class in college so that I could projectile vomit because I was so hungover. And then I was like calling my friends from the bathroom floor of, the whatever technology building being like, please come get me. Like I can't walk across campus to go home. I mean, the keg stands at night, and then you're doing 100 burpees the next morning to Akela Itzine's bikini body hit workout. Sleeping with professional athletes. I met a guy on Tinder, and I let him pick me up from my host family's house while I was studying abroad in Europe. So I got in a car with a stranger in a foreign country, taken anyone, but it's okay because we're getting married. I declined my job offers out of college and was like, I'm actually going to move back to Spain for that guy that I met. Had nowhere to live and no idea what I was going to do. No idea how I was going to make money. I started a business, quit my job in the pandemic, made my first $1 million. I mean, if the 20s taught me anything, I think it was the audacity, like to have the audacity. So what are some of the craziest things that you guys did in your 20s? I'm sure you reflected on a lot of them.
Oh,
while writing the book.
I'm grateful you started us out with projectile vomit because I'm like, can we go? Like, what are we talking about? Because someone could be like, it was crazy. I moved away from my parents' home. And I'm like, oh, I can go all the way in if we want. But Lindsey, I'll let you start.
Well, I just want to note, the audacity is so real and actually so your 20s and very that's what it's meant for. I think it's meant to kind of do things that are experimental. And I think people get really tripped up when they're like, I have to figure it out. I have to set my life up in my 20s so that the rest of my life it makes sense. So just to reflect that, the projectile vomit, I'm sure had a purpose. But yeah, in my 20s, I mean, I feel like there were a few themes, but one of them was absolutely just dating well below my standards in terms of how I was treated. I mean, I was running after some of, New York's finest. I just remember one night, this guy that I was hooking up with, I worked at this bar club and I was finishing my shift and I look over and he's literally snorting pre-workout off of the table. And we were meant to go out later that night. And I just looked at him and he looked at me and just a little smug, get ready for this later. And I was like, dude, I did get ready for it later and it did happen. So that was just the thing of my 20s where I was like, I'm going to settle for less and chase after these guys who, were the athlete type or the young finance type that thought they were hot shit. And really put all of my standards aside. I got a tattoo with all of my friends, the pretty typical, let's all get a tattoo moment. We did that the day before I moved to LA. I actually just remembered the other day that I had a tattoo.
Literally, you said that. I was like, what?
Yeah.
I forget that too.
And it's in a spot that's I would see it every day looking in the mirror, but I don't see it. It's kind of weird where I'm
is it on your ribs?
It's right. It's a feather that basically shapes my boob, on the side boob, which is hilarious. I don't think my dad knows about that to this day. The last thing I'll say is there was a point in my 20s where I experimented with, I did Botox for 10 years, but there was one time that I was like, I'm going to get lip filler like everyone else. And your girl cannot get lip filler. The lips just do not like it. And I literally walked around as though no one noticed. I have pictures of me with my family at a wedding where it is
I'll never forget.
So obvious. I mean, it is actually crazy. And my mom told me later, she's like, your father was like, is everything okay? So yeah, had to know it, in order to know that it wasn't for me. But yeah, it was a good time.
I love that so much. That's so real. The experimentation of just everything. I also have a tattoo and I forget that I have it regularly. I just see myself in the mirror sometimes. I'm like, oh my God.
I know.
I forgot about that.
Should we get it retouched? Do you know what I mean?
I know. I actually have a matching tattoo with my mom.
That's
so
cute.
She was the one that kind of convinced me to get it.
That's cute.
Oh, Lindsey, at least yours is from the heart. I think my toxic trait is when I have gotten lashes or my lips done or anything like that, it's thinking that no one notices.
Yes.
I remember I was in New York with my ex and I got my lips done and I came home and I was like, and he was like, what did you do today? And I was like, nothing. And he's like, what? He's like, I'm looking at your face. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And he's I'm like, no one can tell what's going on. But gosh, my 20s, just for the highest level, I think when we were starting almost 30 and even just the experience of writing the book, we really realized how pivotal this time is and how instrumental it is. Your prefrontal cortex is coming online. So the front part of your brain that's responsible for like processing and consciousness isn't developed yet. So all the decisions that you're making in your earlier 20s up until around 25, 26 are actually like not developed from like a conscious place, but kind of you figuring stuff out and you figuring your life out. And it's the period where we're kind of in the real world from being in college or being at home. It's the time when we're starting our first jobs, people are having kids, people are getting married, like so much change and transition is happening. So it makes sense that we would all kind of be figuring things out and making bad decisions, making good decisions, and really just trying to experiment with life and who we are. But I've been processing something lately, so I'm happy you brought it up that I think about in my 20s. And I had a period where I was like spending all of my paychecks on music festivals. I was like a festival head and I was going to festivals all over the world. Like I would go to South Africa, I would go to like Spain, I would go to Europe. Like I was just every single paycheck. And a lot of that was because I was doing recreational drugs with my then husband. And I just remember being in this experience of the beginning of our relationship and feeling like we had this beautiful, magical, connected relationship where we were deep and intimate and open and speaking in our truth and da 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 da. And so much of that was actually just drug filled. And it was actually like what I thought was like a deep connection was actually just fueled by these recreational drugs that we were doing. And just this kind of experience of really seeking and searching. I think in all of my hilarious moments or my mistakes of my 20s, whether it was like quitting my job to live in Patagonia for a month and go kayaking, or whether it was stopping drinking, or whether it was like moving, a few times. All of it was because I was like a seeker. I was not afraid to go outside my comfort zone or to look silly or stupid because I've always known that there's more in life. I've always known that there's something deeper. I've always known that there's something on the other side of like the pain or the discomfort. But yeah, it was pretty messy and wild. And I think from the outside, people probably thought I was insane for so many things that I did. But I feel so proud of myself for just being the type of person that's willing to willing to be uncomfortable, willing to look silly, willing to do things that don't make sense to anyone else, but make sense to me.
I resonate with that so much, Krista. And I think we'll obviously talk about relationships and stuff, but it sounds like that there was also, a major relationship, marriage dissolution that ended up happening as a result of that. I think a lot of people can relate to. I was just talking about this with someone the other day because, like, I met my partner when I was studying abroad in Spain, like I told you guys, on Tinder on a whim. Wasn't looking for a relationship at all whatsoever. But it's crazy that we lived our entire 20s together. We're 31 now, and we're planning our wedding, and because we're talking about this, like, what do you think made us able to really stay together during that period? Because so many people do end up, their paths just diverge, or they realize that their values are different. Like, you grow and you change so much. And we also had that, like, I quit my job, started a business, like we moved countries together, like so much of who we are changed. So it was interesting for us to reflect on like how and why did we end up growing more together versus apart. And I think it just, at the end of the day, kind of comes down to alignment and like luck, honestly. Like it's sort of like just lucky that I connected with a person who was going to ultimately be on a similar path and grow with me through all of the changes. But I think it's really natural that people grow apart during those years too.
I'm curious, like your relationship with, like both of your relationships to change in yourself and then with another person. I think a lot of times we get freaked out when either ourselves or someone that we're very close to changes, because it means that the dynamic might change. It calls you forward to grow and really like step up in a lot of ways. And so I'm curious about like the health of that part of each of you, where maybe you've had a really great relationship with change and you encourage each other to grow and you allow each other to grow and change. And while it might not be at the same pace as one another or the same, let's say, like decisions, like you both have a commitment to moving forward together no matter what. How does that land in terms of your relationship?
Yeah, I love change.
There you go.
I mean, there's always like this part of uncertainty that's uncomfortable, right? So when it's a really big thing, of course, there's going to be like fear and stuff involved, but I do really get excited by the idea of like new, fresh energy and change. I've always loved change since I was a kid. I was the person, like, I don't know, maybe we all did this, but like, you know how you'd always just like rearrange, you'd spend like 3 hours like moving your furniture around by yourself as a kid, being like,
That's amazing.
it's a new room.
Totally.
And it
I
just
love
like, I don't
that.
know. It just gave you life. I just always have loved change. I wanted to move to another country. Like I did a lot of things alone. I went to university out of state by myself, didn't know anybody. I studied abroad in a foreign country, had never been to Europe a day in my life by myself, didn't go with anyone that I knew, lived with a host family, immersed myself in the language. Like I think I've just kind of had that level of like independence and, you know, also being a seeker, kind of like Krista said, and love change. And my partner is a Gemini. So he also kind of has this like, just like general zest for life and wanting to meet new people and have new conversations, be constantly stimulated. He gets bored really easily. So I think that could definitely be part of it, is us individually, you know, having sort of a positive relationship with the idea of change, even though he changed in different ways than I did. It wasn't like we were, you know, going on like a spiritual journey together and like meditating together. Like that's not our story at all. We're still very different. But yeah, we embrace change, I think. And we love travel. And I think it's the connection of values, you know, like similar values at the end of the day. We're both very ambitious. We have a vision for a big future. We love to travel. We like adventure. Like a lot of that stuff just ultimately aligned, again, by luck, because I didn't know that about him when I met him when I was 21, drunk in a bar in a foreign country.
I think what you were talking about earlier, where you were talking about your relationship and kind of like the soulmate part of it, was kind of what I was getting, and how the souls sometimes just know. And I think about that if I compare, you know, the two relationships that I've had, you know, with Lindsay and then with my ex, who, you know, all love. Like I'm so grateful for that partnership and that relationship. There's no bad feelings, but there is such a first of all, there's a timing thing. There's like just a genuine nature of the way souls work. Like our souls are going to come together, do what they have to do. And if there's no longer growth to be had, and if there's no longer anything more to do, then, you know, you kind of end up moving on. And it's given me a real faith in that process and a real trust in that process as that relationship dissolved and as I moved on from it, because now I know that like I have myself and that I actually don't need to have a relationship to anchor me or to keep me safe or to keep me, you know, being who I am. But I think the difference between the two soulmate relationships, because he was definitely a soulmate of mine, we were together for 10 years, knew each other for, you know, 15, was that Lindsay and I have continued to deepen in our communication and deepen in the way that we remain sovereign and free. And we like trust each other's soul paths so much more deeply. And we hold each other deeply, but lightly at the same time, where we don't have fear about each other going anywhere. And we've developed an ability to really communicate with love and with reverence, and to really speak to things in a way that doesn't allow resentment to build, but only allows us to deepen and feel more connected, but more free at the same time. And I feel like with my ex, it was just something that we got together so young. We didn't really navigate communication that well. So we weren't able to really come together through rupture and come together through conflict. Things kind of made us grow further apart. So I think communication is always huge in relationships and staying together. And then I think what you said is really beautiful about shared vision and values, continuing to come back together of shared vision and values, and like, who are you now? Where are we going? Like, how can we continue to be ourselves and be experiencing life as a sovereign soul, but stay in connection?
It reminds me of the Glennon Doyle quote about how we want to be both held and free. That kind of like is what you were describing in your relationship with Lindsay, of like, you know, holding each other tightly, but lightly at the same time.
Yes,
beautiful.
It's beautiful.
So Saturn returns, obviously a major theme of this book. And there's going to be so many women listening to this podcast that are in their Saturn return or about to go into it, or maybe have just gone through it. And so I think, yeah, I'd love to talk to you guys about your experience of the Saturn return, also to kind of like normalize it, not scare anyone, but also make, I don't know, like I think we can make light of it. Like it can be fun. It's kind of fun to reflect on all the things that happened. But also always with the knowing that everything that you're learning when you go through that divine kind of portal is setting you up to be happier, to be freer, to be more authentic, to be more aligned on the other side. So even though there can be that kind of like breakdown or destruction that happens for some people when they're in their Saturn return, it's always because it's building to like the breakthrough and the revelation and that like next beautiful chapter. And I hear so many women talk about how they love their 30s, like once they're in their 30s. I mean, I think women in every decade are like, wait, it just gets better. Like, I give less fucks. Like, this is even more fun. Like, the Kardashians even talking about like their 40s, how they like loved them so much more than their 30s. So I do think it's this kind of positive thing to think about. The way that we move through aging is just getting to those deeper levels of ourself and truer versions of who we are, and like the returning to who we've always been. And I think that's really what happens in the Saturn return, in a chaotic, sometimes messy, but ultimately like really beautiful way. So I think everyone listening to this will already know kind of what a Saturn return is. We have a lot of astrology girlies. But yeah, obviously it can bring these like life changes, career shifts, relationship transitions or breakdowns, reevaluation of our values, the awakening of our deeper purpose, I think happens for a lot of people in that phase. What was interesting when I was preparing for this interview, I was like, let me just look up and reflect on, because you know how like your Saturn return is obviously a longer period of time, but then there's like the exact date where like Saturn was like to the degree of like where it was when you were born. I was like, let me just, for shits and giggles, like look it up. I looked it up and I kid you not, it was like 48 hours after I had packed my entire life into like 6 suitcases and moved my whole life with my partner and my dog from Spain to the US to like move back into my parents' house to like start a whole new journey here in the US. I'm like, it tracks.
Wow.
Like big life changes. So I'm just curious for you guys, it's obviously going to be a big part of the book, but how would you describe your Saturn returns and what were some of those biggest pivotal changes?
Yeah, you did such a good job describing what a Saturn return is. And for anyone just very, very high level who's like, what is your Saturn return? I actually don't know. It's the place, basically Saturn comes back to the place it was when you were born. And Saturn is a planet that is, kind of a tough love kind of figure where the planet is going to make you evaluate what's working and what's not in your life, what is aligned and what's not. And like you said, it can be chaotic, it can be overwhelming, it can feel like everything's falling apart, but actually it's coming together. And when you said, you're returning to yourself, I think that's how people can really think about the Saturn return, is the return to your true self, the return to that soul part of you, the part of you that knows, the part of you that trusts, the timing of your life. But for me, my Saturn return began right after I had a huge breakup where I thought I was going to be with this person for the rest of my life. I would have put money on it. I told my Nana, yep, this is the person, don't worry. And I blew it up. My soul had been talking to me for a while saying, this is not it. This is not what you deserve. And, there is something more for you. Not to say that he wasn't an incredible person, but we just weren't truly a match on a soul level. And I'm sure a lot of your listeners can feel this way. And Samantha, I'm curious, just your relationship with your soul and how it's spoken to you over the years. But it speaks quietly, until it has to get really loud to get your attention. And so that moment where I was unfaithful to my boyfriend and he found out and I blew it up was kind of that big, loud moment. And from there, I was launched into a period of about 7 years of being single. And, that was a huge part of my Saturn return, was that just exploration of, who I really was, so that I could then be very clear about who I wanted to be with in my life in terms of a romantic partner. Because I think for so long I was choosing people or just hoping someone chose me. And then I would like morph into whatever they wanted me to be. But this was my opportunity to become who I really am. And so that looked like, years of dating the wrong people and then finally not dating and dating myself. and dating myself, I talk about this in the book, is a practice that I do to this day and is a profound, simple, but kind of intimidating practice where you really commit to spending time with yourself. That could look like, a Saturday morning trip to the farmer's market or going to a restaurant and sitting at the bar and having dinner, no distractions. But it's a profound practice during this time, especially. But, when I moved to LA during my Saturn return, that was my, in your case, moving from Spain to the US, that was kind of the moment of like big movement. The breakup happened. And then a couple years later, I moved to LA and my whole life changed and just everything opened up creatively. I kind of rewrote my relationship with my body. So many things that felt like I really hadn't figured out started to come together, and all because I was committing to knowing myself better. So it was certainly chaotic. It wasn't pretty at all. But now in my 30s and after my Saturn return has ended, so many things make sense. In a relationship now where, it is healthy and I'm, kind of reaping the benefits of all of the decisions I made in the wake of not being with people who respected me. And it's a really, really beautiful thing. So even if you've been through your Saturn return, it actually is a really cool thing to look back on and think about what was coming up for me then. What were the big themes? What was like maybe a big event that really changed the trajectory of my life? And to look at it from that lens is really fun.
Yeah, I love that so much. I actually interviewed Deborah Silverman when I was in my Saturn return, and we talked a lot about this. And then I was talking with my mom about it, and she was like, "Oh, I wonder what I was doing in my Saturn return." And she was like, "Oh, I was giving birth to you."
Mm-hmm.
And so it is fun, like no matter what age you are, to kind of reflect on, what that season of life was like and what the lessons are that you can pull from it now that you know what kind of like the purpose or the meaning is behind it. But I'm really curious to hear from you, Krista, what yours was like.
Yeah, I think for me, my Saturn return period was all about purpose. I've been someone that my entire life wanted to feel like I was here for a purpose, on purpose, for a reason. I've just been this like deep, soulful being since I was very little. And so what caused me a lot of pain in my 20s was feeling like everything I was doing didn't matter, feeling like I wasn't here to participate in like what's making the world better, feeling like I had so many gifts, but I didn't really know how to exercise them, or I didn't really know how to share them. And so I was in the corporate world, for my 20s. I was in like finance management consulting. I was in marketing. I was in events. Like I kind of did a bunch of different jobs, hoping that I would find what I came here to do, hoping I would find my reason for living, because I didn't feel like I really had a reason for living outside of trying to find my purpose. So this period of my depression and my anxiety really came to a head at the beginning of my Saturn return when I was living in Chicago. And I remember being just so anxious and depressed that one morning I remember waking up and my best friend had been on the couch in the living room. And I remember having like a few seconds before my anxiety kicked in again. And I was like, oh, it's like, I felt like this freedom and liberation. I was like, oh my God, okay. And then it started. And the thoughts were, what am I doing here? What is the purpose? What is the point? I need to be, I need to be making a difference. I need to be successful. Like I was just kind of feeling really unfulfilled and unsatisfied. And I walked out of my room and started talking to my best friend. And I was like, I just feel like so anxious and depressed. And she had known me since I was, 10. So she was like, I've never seen you this way. And I've seen you go through some stuff. And this feels different. This feels just really challenging and hard. And from that moment, I committed to really going for it. Like I was like, you know what? If I'm this low and depressed, I might as well just like burn it all down. And that meant leaving my corporate job. That meant, going to Patagonia, like I said. That meant stopping drinking. That meant stop hanging out with friends that I'd been hanging out with. That meant ending a 4-year relationship with someone I went to college with. That meant finding my then husband and moving to New York City after only knowing him for like, a short amount of time, but only meeting in person probably 5 times. So I just really was like, you know what? Like it actually, like I'm at my lowest. Life feels so purposeless. And that was kind of a really good fiery energy to propel me to finding what I was meant here to do and finding something that would make me feel alive and satisfy me. So I think every area of my life was hit in my Saturn return because I was so unaligned, but I really think that it was about purpose. And through the process, of our Saturn return, Lindsey and I have like interesting Saturn return journeys, because I think in my desire to find purpose was propelling me so much forward to her, but I didn't know she would be a part of my purpose. It was interesting because what I was seeking so much almost created an energy of not having it come in the way that I thought it would come. I thought I was going to be a blogger. I thought I was going to like do all these things. And so the thing that I wasn't trying to force or push or effort was my relationship with Lindsey and the podcast. So it was such a lesson for me, and it was such a hard, challenging time. But again, like I just look back in such reverence for my soul for always choosing the path that was the most aligned for me, even if it didn't make sense to anyone else on the outside.
Yeah, that's such good insight about like the thing, it's going to come in the way that you least expect it so often.
100%.
And the thing that you're not trying to push or force, which is so hard because I think in like today's world, we're so fixated on this idea of purpose now, like to understand it, we need to know it, we need to live it, we need to monetize it. And I think that creates that energy of like forcing and pushing. And then there's the frustration of like, why do I not feel like I know what my fucking purpose is by now? So I think that's a really beautiful insight for people to take away, which is like, it's also annoying to hear because you're like, okay, cool. I guess there's nothing for I can do about it.
100%.
Like I just, surrender.
Yeah,
You're
right.
like, another
It just
person
has to
advising
find
me
you.
to surrender. Yes.
There's so much of what I say now, just being older and like wiser, that I'm like, if I was in my 20s, I would be like, shut up. You're saying just follow my heart. You're saying just like listen to my. I'm like, no, I need to figure it out. I need to do. And, to say to that, like the hard work that I put in, this is the thing. I was following what I was called to do with Lindsey. It was pleasurable, interesting, fun. And we worked our asses off. I was working a full-time job. She was working a full-time job. So we waited for the call. We listened to the call. We were listening to what felt good, but that didn't mean we weren't working really hard. And that didn't mean we weren't pushing ourselves outside our comfort zone. And that didn't mean we weren't prioritizing that over anything else. So it's really, truly the mix of like listening to the call of your soul and what feels good, what gives you energy, what doesn't feel like work, and then truly like going for it, and going for it looks cringe. Going for it looks silly. Going for it looks embarrassing. Going for it is uncomfortable to feel. But if it's like what you're meant to do, you really have to prioritize that over anything else.
Yeah, I think that's an important distinction of like, yes, surrender and lean into the flow, like waiting for that kind of call, for that thing that feels right. But ultimately, in order to create this level of success or any level of success, but I mean, what you guys have done is monumental. I mean, it's incredible. You've built like a legacy. You're leaving behind these, books, podcasts, so many interviews, like to think about all of the conversations that you've had that have inspired people all over the world, that have changed the way that they see themselves, relationships, their body, like so many things. I mean, that's like legacy, right? Which is oftentimes what I think we forget about when we are content creators or podcasters, is like truly the power that we have to create something so much bigger than ourselves, and simply just having these conversations and sharing. But the reality that you shared, Krista, of like, it does take work. There is ease and flow involved, but there's also hard fucking work. And I think sometimes that gets overshadowed in this, through this like spiritual kind of glaze where it's like, just let it come to you or let it happen. So I'd love to hear you guys riff on that a little bit of what it was really like, to actually build this, because it's nothing small.
Yeah. Just on that piece of, because I think a lot of people might be going through it related to their career and purpose and kind of confusing the two potentially, where people feel like, my career or what I'm doing right now for my job to make money has to feel like my purpose, has to feel like flow, and has to make me happy, which I'm not discounting any of those desires at all, because that's incredible and would be, I think, ideal. However, sometimes living your purpose does not look like flow, does not look like ease all the time. Being committed to living on purpose and truly believing that you are the purpose means that you are going to be moving through seasons and moving through experiences and being in relationships that are going to challenge you, that are going to ask you to like kind of step up and step in and lean in a way that, might be uncomfortable, might like really push you to that growth edge, but that's the purpose. And so when Krista talks about, like basically like taking action, not just sitting back and being like, I'll wait for the manifestation to come in. You have to take action. I think that that's what happens, when you commit to taking action, commit to trusting the call to what feels purposeful, you're going to move through some things that are going to, make you very uncomfortable. So to relate that to our experience with Almost 30, I mean, we've had so many uncomfortable seasons with Almost 30 as she's grown and evolved. I think, one that I can speak to in the beginning, Krista and I, came together as people who deeply related to one another, are to this day so deeply connected. We've spent many lives together. And that means that we've had a lot of challenges in our relationship because of the complexities of being best friends and business partners and creative partners. And it's been really beautiful because through, following this call to create Almost 30, through our commitment to the purpose of our relationship, we've worked with coaches and therapists and worked together to discover parts of us that needed tending and healing and we needed to work on. And it's been such a safe and beautiful space for that. And I'm so grateful because it's set the tone for every relationship that I have, the depth that we have, the commitment to truth that we have, the respect that we have, the relationship to change that we have, and we allow each other to evolve, has been really deeply profound. But it has not been easy. Our relationship has taken work. And last thing I'll say is a lot of people come to us asking, I want to create a podcast, or I want to create something with my best friend. And, we always pause and we are very, very blessed because, we are the type to lean in and to do the work, but it's complicated and it'll bring up so much that you need to tend to and work on. And are you willing to do that? Are you down for that? And the health of our relationship has absolutely reflected the health and success of the show. So it's something that we prioritize.
This was going to be one of my questions for you guys, because I think it's so interesting to see, the longevity and the continued growth and strength of this business and podcast and all of it as best friends. I mean, that's hard. People will always advise you, don't get into business with friends and family. It's challenging. And I also think, in this conversation of moving from your 20s into your 30s and Saturn returns and stuff, there's an inevitable separation, the same way that we talked about with romantic relationships. But there's a lot of friendship breakdown that happens in that time period of your life for various reasons. I also think the more aligned that you become in your own purpose and your own path, the more natural it is for relationships and friends to kind of fade away, or for you to see that the soul contract is complete, or that you're no longer aligned with those people. And that's hard for a lot of women as they're pursuing these pieces of their higher path or their higher self, is this idea that the true cost of alignment, everybody wants to be aligned, but the true cost of alignment is often the fact that not everyone can come with you. So I appreciate you sharing candidly about, the real deep work that you guys had to do to make your friendship still remain healthy while being business partners.
I love what you said. I love that you brought this into the room, because this is such an important texture for the women that are listening, especially in your audience, because what can keep us from our path and our bigness and our power and our purpose is our desire to keep every connection we've ever had, because that's what makes us feel safe. That's what makes us feel worthy. That's what makes us feel loved, is being in connection with people or being liked by people. I'll never forget when I moved from New York to Los Angeles, and it was, I think, around the time I'd met Lindsay. I felt a lot of shame because I was like, oh, I don't have the 3 best friends that they have in Sex and the City or Girls. I was like, I kind of had different friends at different phases of my life from all over the world. And I was like, is there something wrong with me, that I've kind of I haven't kept friends from childhood or from home. I just kind of acquire friends as I grow and evolve and change. And what I realized is that I'm going to be a soul that moves through relationships and people, and I just need to prioritize what my soul came here to do, my purpose, over anything else. And that doesn't mean I'm out of integrity. That doesn't mean I'm a bad person. That doesn't mean I don't have deep, intimate relationships. It's actually been the opposite, where now the more aligned I am with my soul and myself and what I came here to do, the more I've magnetized women that are in that same case and space. But it did take me to have times of a void period, times of loneliness, times of feeling like there was something wrong with me because I wasn't hanging out with 12 girls at one time, or I wasn't in relationship with the same people. I wasn't like doing all the things everyone was doing. And for most of the people listening, and I know for our audience, like they want different lives. They want to be happy. They want to feel on purpose. They want to feel connected. They want to feel these things that not a lot of people feel. And so to feel differently than most people, you have to do different things. You have to prioritize different things. You have to prioritize what you came here to do. And I've just really, really had to come to terms with that. And I think a practical exercise that really helped me on my path with this, and was such a liberating moment, was because I was in codependent relationships with most of my friends, and definitely in my partnerships, where I would prioritize their comfort over my own expression or my own voice or whatever. I would prioritize the attachment over the authenticity. What I did was I had a ritual one evening where I psychically and energetically let go of every single relationship in my life. I thought, this person that I love so much, like even Lindsay is an example, like my Lindsay, I'm like, okay, if Lindsay and I were to not be friends, I would be okay. And I would be safe and I would be well, and it would be what is meant to be. If this other person in relationship that I deeply love was to end, I would be okay. And I would be well, and I would be free. And by really letting go of this unhealthy attachment to these relationships, especially with women, it really allowed a more natural, free connection between us, where I wasn't trying to get something from them. I wasn't trying to get approval. I wasn't trying to keep our connection and forego what I came here to do. I was able to come as like a whole person, and they were able to come as a whole person. So just really speaking into anyone that feels like they want to do something big in life, and they want to be happy, and they want to be satisfied, and they want to feel like they're on purpose. Sometimes you will be lonely, and sometimes you will have to prioritize your own experience and your own purpose over connection. But I promise you that in the end, you will find the more aligned connections.
So good. Such good advice. I resonate so much. Like, I even think when I was younger, I was never the person that had the biggest friend groups. And I remember thinking like, oh, like I was friends with everybody, but I wasn't like, when when you're like in.
Mm-hmm.
And I like had my like core, like 2-3 friends in middle school, high school, but it was just like so tight. I was always just with a few people that I was really tight with. And I think when you're younger, there is that desire of like wanting to be in the big groups, the person that's invited to everything. And then there's this maturing of realizing that, yeah, really prioritizing the relationships where you do feel like you can be your fullest self, and there's no fakeness, and there's no jealousy, and there's no competition, and there's not like, that's better. In the end, it's better. It's better to be lonely, as you said, or to have a few core friends than to be in this big group that feels fake, or like you have to perform in order for them to like you. And I think even reflecting back, on what Lindsay asked me about my relationship, you just made me kind of think of that, Krista, as like, he's a very secure person, very confident. And like, we've always sort of individually felt in our relationships that we would both be fine without each other. Obviously, I would never want to live without him, but even early on in our relationships, like we're not the people that say like, I need you. It's like, I think that's a nice and cute thing to say, but we were both very like clear about the fact that like, if we broke up, like we would move on, and we'd be fine, and we'd be safe, and we'd be okay. And I think that is the thing that allows you to have even better relationships. So I love that you brought that to the forefront. This conversation has been so amazing. I know that the women listening to this are going to be obsessed. I want to finish with you guys. We have a few minutes left. I want to do a rapid fire smash or pass, but like a women in their 30s, like wellness edition, if you're down.
Yeah, let's
Are we
do
down?
it.
So down.
Okay.
Remind me,
Okay, so we'll
smash
just
or
go-
pass? Okay, smash is good, right?
We're like, how do we do the Gen Z part again?
Hey, honestly, is that it?
I literally
What is
had
that?
to like practice my
it's like
fingers.
how Gen Z does the heart.
Oh, I mean, that looks demonic. Okay. Anyway.
instead of like this,
Yeah.
they do like that.
Wait, that's hilarious.
Anyway,
Love it.
Okay, so since there's two of you, we'll have Krista, you answer first, and then Lindsay answer second.
Great.
And just go smash is yes, love it. Pass is no thanks.
Okay.
Okay. Walking pads.
Walking pads? What are those?
Yeah.
Walking
Like underneath
pads,
your
like
computer.
underneath your desk. Smash
I'd
or
say-
pass, Krista.
Oh God, this is what's annoying about me. So I'm going to be like explaining it. I would say pass because I just want to be mindful of where we're doing everything to be more productive. It's like go outside and get a walk because you want to be in nature. Like I just feel like we are so obsessed with productivity that we're doing everything to like stay productive, even buying walking pads.
Yeah.
You, Lindsay?
Pass.
Pass. Okay, matcha over coffee.
Ugh, matcha's disgusting. It's so gross. I literally think everyone that likes it is lying to
I
themselves.
love it.
but I don't like coffee
love
either.
it.
Do you have
What
it
about you,
sweetened?
Lindsay?
I love a loaded coffee.
of
Like I
course.
put, I put like
Exactly.
all the MCT, like all the bulletproof type coffee. So yeah, I say coffee over matcha.
Okay, so both of you pass on the matcha.
Yeah.
I think I know this one based on our conversation. Botox and filler.
Oh, what do you mean? I mean, smash, I guess.
Pass at this point in my
Smash
life. Pass for now.
Okay, raw milk.
Pass.
Smash.
Gross.
What about cold plunging?
Smash in seasons.
Mm.
I can't. You just can't do it all the time as a woman. I don't think it's good, but I would say smash seasonally. Smash every once in a while.
Yeah,
Booty call.
I'd say the same. Mostly pass, but yeah, I'd say the same.
Okay, moving from LA to Austin.
Oh my God, LOL. I was going to do that in the pandemic. I was like, oh, we're going to move to Austin. I would say it was smash and now it's pass for sure.
Pass.
Pass, hard pass. Okay. Soft launching a new relationship.
I like to do that.
Yeah.
I like to make them wonder. So I like to like just like throw little like things so people wonder what's up. So I'm smash that.
Smash.
They understand marketing, girlies. Okay.
Exactly.
Glazed donut skin.
Smash for sure. I want
Hella
the
smash.
shinier, the better, please.
Yeah, she's like a little like butterball.
I know. I do not. I literally was thinking because I'm going to LA on Sunday. I'm like, I want to tell our makeup girl, juicy, shiny, like a dewy. I don't. No matte.
I'm a matte baby. I like matte.
Really? Because you always look. I feel like you're a combo. I feel like it's always so
She's
nice.
like, really? Because you're not
It's
achieving
nice.
that
No,
look.
it's
You're not-
nice.
I know,
It's always nice.
Okay, what about weighted vests?
Oh my God. Pass. Get a grip.
Actually, smash. I just got one.
Dude, what are you talking about?
Mhm. Yeah, it's
For
actually
what?
really good for your posture. And then I don't have the ability to work out like I used to. So it's actually nice when I go on walks. They're not as long as they used to. And I get kind of my heart rate up a little bit. It's nice.
Turns her on a little bit.
Mhm.
She likes it. Okay, to each their own. Okay, a couple more. Sourdough starter as your actual child.
Say more. I don't know what that means.
Everyone loves making their own sourdough,
Oh.
and they're like babysitting these starters because you have to be so attentive to
So
them.
funny.
Okay, I say smash for people because it brings them in the present moment. It helps them connect with their food. It helps them enjoy something outside of like
No, but for you, are you
absolutely
smashing
not.
the sourdough?
Absolutely
No.
not. I'm smashing delivery food. I'm never cooking. I literally haven't ate something that wasn't packaged in years.
I'd say smash. I haven't done it yet, but it's on my list because I do like I like a little process. I like slowing down. I love cooking, so eventually.
Yeah, Lindsay's loving the trad wife, the trad wife core
It's
that
facts.
we're
It's
giving
Raw
her a
milk,
little
She's
bit.
in that
sourdough.
pipeline so hard.
Mhm.
She is. She's in her motherhood era. Okay, it's like I think it's a natural evolution.
I send
Later,
farms
you
to
and
my
I, Krista,
husband.
Are going to be like,
that's the next thing.
we're going to be like, how are those chickens, Lindsay?
Dude, no, for real. I've seen the journey and I've just gotten further away from that.
Mhm.
I'm just like,
Okay, last few really quickly. Ayahuasca retreats.
okay, so we did one in 2018 and
19.
2019.
Yeah.
It was good. It was interesting. I think at the right space with the right intention and the right purpose, it can be really powerful and transformative. Overall, I don't really love ayahuasca. I think it's kind of a tainted medicine that has its own agenda. And I think people could find the meaning in life and the purpose without something. But for some people, it really is supportive for them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'd say
So I'd say for me in this moment, pass.
yeah, pass, but I'd say the same. Had the similar experience.
Okay, reformer Pilates.
Oh my God, so hard of a smash. Like
I could see that
this
for you.
body is fully reformer Pilates out.
Smash. I do like reformer Pilates, like once a week, actually.
Okay, what about last one, using ChatGPT as your therapist?
Oh my God. It's such a smash. It's so embarrassing. I just processed like an entire relationship with ChatGPT, and like it helped me see a pattern that I had been missing my entire life and was incredibly helpful. I'm now no longer doing that because it was too weird the way I was talking to my ChatGPT. Like I was like, what do you think about, like it was kind of becoming codependent, but I'm a smash on that.
I haven't done it, but I'll pass for now. I do love my therapist, so I'll give her cred.
Oh my God, so good. This was so much fun. Thank you guys so much for coming on the show. I'm so excited about the new book. Can you let everyone know where they can find it, when it's out? We'll obviously link it in the show notes for you guys as well, too.
Yes, our new book, Almost 30, A Definitive Guide to a Life You Love for the Next Decade and Beyond, is out June 3rd. We're so grateful. Thank you so much to everyone for supporting. It means the world. And we just know that this book is going to be kind of that, back pocket guide for the rest of your life as you move through change, truly. But if you want to learn more about Almost 30, you can go to almost30.com. You can buy the book there. You can listen to the podcast there, learn more about Krista and myself. And I'm on Instagram at Lindsey Simsick, and Almost 30's on Instagram at Almost 30 Podcast.
And I'm at It's Krista. It's Krista. And I'm so grateful to be here. I had the best time talking to you. I just want to like hang out in person. And I feel so lucky that we get to do what we do. And I'm excited for people to get the book.
Yay. All right, you guys, we'll link everything in the show notes. If you don't already follow Krista and Lindsey, go give them a follow. Obviously, listen to the show. You're going to love it. Be obsessed. Grab your copy of the book. We'll link it to pre-order in the show notes. We love you guys so much, and we'll talk to you next week. Bye.